Let us pray. We, thine unworthy servants, here gathered together in thy name, do humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above to direct and guide us in all our considerations. Amen. Would you please remain standing? Since the House last sat, there have been a number of deaths which we now would memorialize. The first is the Honorable Frank Lynch Staunton, who died on September the 25th of this year. He served from 1979 to 1985 as the Queen's representative in the Alberta legislature. The Honorable Frank Lynch Staunton was Alberta's 11th Lieutenant Governor. His family are present here in the Speaker's Gallery this day. Mr. Adolf Olaf Fimwright passed away on July the 18th of 1990. He represented the constituency of Spirit River. He was first elected to Alberta's legislature in the 1952 general election. He was re-elected in 1955, 1959, 1963, and in 1967, and served the legislature and the people of that constituency until 1971. We also remember Mr. Allison Ira Fluker, who passed away October the 16th. Mr. Fluker represented the constituency of St. Paul. He was first elected to Alberta's legislature in the 1971 general election. He was re-elected in the 1975 election and served this province and his constituency until 1979. And members of his family are present in the Speaker's Gallery as well. We also remember Clifford Lawrence Doan, who passed away November the 24th. He represented the constituency of Innisfail, was first elected to Alberta's legislature in the 19th general election. He was re-elected in the 1975 election and served until 1979. We also memorialize one of our sitting members, Gordon Samuel Dales Wright, who passed away on October the 18th. He represented the constituency of Edmonton Strathcona and was first elected to the legislature in 1986 and re-elected in the 1989 general election, and members of his family are present in the Speaker's Gallery. I ask honorable members to join in a moment of silent prayer. Rest eternal grant unto them, O Lord, and let light perpetual shine upon them. Amen. Pray, be seated. Order in the House, please. Chair recognizes the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, my condolences to all the families of the deceased. All these people mentioned by the speaker served with dignity and served well in service of our community and our province. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take just a couple moments to talk about my colleague Gordon Wright. October the 18th was a very sad day. I think it was a sad day for all Alberta residents, certainly a sad day for the residents of Edmonton, a sad day for the voters of Edmonton, Strathcona, and I think I'm speaking for everybody, a sad day for all members of the legislature, regardless of which political party they represent, and certainly for us in the official opposition, a very sad day for us, but for all members of our party. As you know, that was the day our colleague Gordon Wright passed away. Now, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, in this day and age, there is often a great deal of cynicism and disillusionment with politicians. Some of it, I expect, legitimate, others perhaps not. But I would say, while there may be an overall cynicism with the Canadian public and the Alberta public about public life and perhaps politics in general, and I hope that will turn around, I think specific politicians, if you look at them, there is not that cynicism. And if I may say so, and my colleague Gordon Wright, there was not any cynicism about Gordon Wright, the politician. The words that I've heard to describe him, both while he was alive, which is important to know, and also since he's passed, are words such as integrity, decency, compassion, caring, honest, dedicated, and competent. And of course, all this mentioned along with his tremendous sense of humor. And the day that Gordon came to tell me about the fact that he had pancreatic cancer, that sense of humor was still there, because all of us that know Gordon know that he was a physical fitness buff, still playing rugger and riding his bicycle, and we all remember that contest with him and racing the buses and the cars. But the first thing he said to me, "Well, Ray, I found out that clean living isn't everything." So even at that point, he had that sense of humor. And if I may, just from a partisan view, say that Gordon Wright's life really is the history of our party. It is the history of the NDP. He was involved when the NDP was formed, the early 50s. Many of you, if you're not aware of it, he ran against Grant Notley for leader in 1968, lost by 27 votes. But to show the kind of man that he was, he immediately turned around and was the president of the party, serving very closely with Grant over a number of years. He was up from there, the president. When I was the provincial secretary of the party, he was the treasurer. That's always an interesting challenge when it comes to our party, Mr. Speaker. After that, he had interest also in federal politics and was a federal vice president. But I think it says everything about the man in terms of his dedication and stick-to-itiveness that before he was elected in Strathcona, he ran 5 times and was defeated. And some of us, at least on this side, know how that feels and have to go back and do it 5 times. I think shows a lot about the man. As you mentioned, was elected in 86 and re-elected in 89. Now, knowing Gordon, so I guess what I'm saying is that he is really the history of the NDP in this province. But knowing Gordon Wright, as all of us here did, I'm sure if he's watching up above, Mr. Speaker, he would be bemused by the tributes that have come in since his death. But I want to say to him, if I may, Mr. Speaker, that you deserved, Gordon Wright, all these tributes. And in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I say to Gordon through his family, Gordon Wright, rest easy. You'll always be entrenched in our hearts. We already miss you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister of Advanced Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I say at the outset on behalf of the government how indebted we are, sir, to you to adopt a policy of recognizing honorable members who have served this House, both as elected members and as in this case the Lieutenant Governor. Mr. Speaker, I had the honor and privilege of having served with four of the honorable gentlemen you've mentioned, the Honorable Franklin Staunton, Mick Fluker, the member for St. Paul, the Honorable Cliff Doane, the one and only Mr. Doane, the member for Innisfail, and of course Mr. Gordon Wright. Mr. Speaker, they all brought something very unique to this assembly, and each of them in their own way, in my view, and in the government's view, I'm sure, expressed on behalf of their constituents some very true feelings about the needs of not only Alberta, but how their constituency fitted into the province as a whole. In particular, however, Mr. Speaker, the late Gordon Wright, because he served so recently, was of some special interest to me as a member, and I would simply sum up my impressions of the honorable gentleman really this way. Had served, as honorable members know, as a Crown prosecutor for the Attorney General's Department. Whether that was a precursor of Crown prosecutors not being paid enough in public office, I don't know, but it was obviously bad judgment if one looked at the rate of pay he received when he was elected. Mr. Speaker, as you well know, and I well know as Deputy Speaker in this House, Mr. Wright was that gentleman who perhaps didn't always challenge the rules, but there was perhaps never a better student of the rules of this Assembly than those voiced by Gordon Wright. Above all, Mr. Speaker, he had, in my view, a great love for tradition. He had great respect for the principles of democracy, and certainly had to be and will continue to be known as an outstanding parliamentarian. But in the final analysis, Mr. Speaker, if I were to sum up the views that I have of the honorable late member for Edmonton Strathcona, Gordon Wright was indeed a gentleman's gentleman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Edmonton Glengarry.
Speaker, I'd first like to start by acknowledging the families that are here this afternoon, and we feel for those families. We mourn for those families. We mourn the death of Alberta leaders. I had the privilege of, when I was the mayor of the city of Edmonton, in often dealing with the former lieutenant governor of our province. I have never met a man who I thought was more suited for that job, more comfortable in that job, as happy as a person could be in that job than our former lieutenant governor. We from the Liberal Party mourn his death. I had the privilege of knowing Gordon Wright as a lawyer before I came into this assembly, and developed great respect for him, watching him in action in the courts of Alberta. He was a man who had integrity in that courtroom, who had aggressiveness in that courtroom, and usually things went his way. I got to know Mr. Wright even better when I came into this assembly, and it was there that I saw that he was a man who really was true to his convictions. He stated his mind. He often would take a side that would be with you even though you happen to be of a different political persuasion on some issues. I think that it's true that we could say of Gordon Wright that he was an honorable gentleman. My colleagues in the Liberal caucus will miss Gordon Wright. Thank you.
Would you all please rise? Sergeant at Arms, march off the flag of Alberta, please. Please be seated. Question period, please signify.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions.
Member for West Yellowhead.
Mr. Chairman, I table today a petition signed by 1,259 Alberta taxpayers from the Hinton-Cathman area of the riding of West Yellowhead in regards to a horribly depleting highway number 40 between Hinton and Cathman.
Thank you.
Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees.
Member for Tabor-Warner.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to present the final report of the Select Special Committee on Electoral Boundaries.
Thank you, honourable member. Member for Cardston.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 52, the Standing Committee on the Alberta Heritage Savings Trust Fund Act is required to report to the Legislative Assembly at this time. Mr. Speaker, this will serve as an interim report to inform the Legislative Assembly that the committee is presently undergoing its deliberations and expects to deliver a final report in the spring.
Thank you.
Notices of motions.
Member for Edmonton Glengarry.
Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 40, I will move after question period the following motion that the Legislative Assembly direct the Provincial Treasurer to present supplementary estimates of expenditure to cover the special warrants issued since the last sitting and the anticipated expenditures to the end of the fiscal year. Thank you.
Thank you. The Minister of Advanced Education.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Honourable Government House Leader, I give oral notice of the following motion. Be it resolved that the report and recommendations contained therein presented to the Assembly on November 26, 1990 by the Select Special Committee on Electoral Boundaries appointed pursuant to Motion 14 passed by this Assembly on August 15, 1989 be now received and concurred in.
Thank you, honourable member. Leader of the Opposition.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, it is my intention to move the following motion today under the provision of Standing Order 30. Mr. Speaker, be it resolved that the ordinary business of the Assembly be adjourned this afternoon to discuss the urgency of need for the government to introduce in this setting of the Assembly a revised budget for the current fiscal year, which reports accurately any changes in its forecasted revenue and which reflect changes in expenditure plans to meet the needs of our hospitals, schools and post-secondary education, social services system, agriculture producers, and other Albertans and institutions whose needs are not being met by the budget set down in March 1990.
Thank you. Member for Edmonton Gold Bar.
Mr. Speaker, I give notice pursuant to Standing Order 30 that after the daily routine tomorrow, November 27th, 1990, I'll request leave to move to adjourn the ordinary business of the Assembly in order to discuss the need for an immediate resolution of the critical conditions at the Royal Alexandra Hospital.
Thank you. Clerk.
Introduction of bills. Tabling returns and reports.
Member for Edmonton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to table a fact sheet put out today by the Alberta Hospital Association outlining its 1991 $55 million shortfall. As well, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to file with the Legislative Assembly response by the New Democrats to the Hyman report on universal health care in the province, a report that we're entitling Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Thank you.
Honourable members, I am pleased to table pursuant to statute the annual report of the Office of the Chief Electoral Officer, and I am further pleased to table pursuant to statute the member services orders passed since the spring adjournment.
Introduction of special guests.
Member Clover Barr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure today to introduce to you, Mr. Speaker, and through you to the members of the Assembly, 43 students, grade 6 students from the James Mowat School in the Clover Bar constituency, The students are accompanied by teachers and parents, the Anadal, head fellows, Mrs. Boyko, and Mr. Kozak. Our guests are seated in the members and in the public gallery, and I would ask them to rise. And I would ask that the members of the Assembly extend their traditional warm welcome.
Edmonton Avonmore.
Mr. Speaker, it gives me pleasure today to introduce to you and through you to members of this Assembly 23 children from Mill Creek Elementary School. They are accompanied by their teacher Mary Aldridge and by parent Michelle Michalowski. I would ask that they please rise and accept the warm welcome of this Assembly. They're seated.
Member for Highwood.
Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted today to introduce to you and through you to members of this Assembly a hard-working, long-serving alderman from the city of Calgary, Alderman Barb Scott. She sits on the Calgary District Hospital Group, is the chairman of the Calgary FCSS, and has recently agreed to sit on the Minister's Advisory Committee review of the FCSS here in the province. Alderman Scott is seated in the members' gallery, and I'd ask her to rise and receive the warm traditional welcome of this Assembly.
Additional.
Ministerial statements.
Minister of Social Services.
Mr. Speaker, it's with a great deal of pleasure that I rise today on behalf of Premier Getty and the government of the province of Alberta to announce the introduction of Supports for Independence, Alberta's new income support program. When I accepted this portfolio, Mr. Speaker, I made a personal commitment to listen. And by listening, I have heard what Albertans want for their province's social programs. These reforms, the most substantial to date, are the product of many voices: clients, staff, advocacy and community groups, my colleagues in caucus and cabinet, and members of the general public. Supports for Independence has been developed with careful thought and foresight. It is not a quick fix, Mr. Speaker. Supports for Independence will replace the present social allowance program, which has experienced a great deal of strain trying to meet the changing needs of Albertans. This reform is part of this government's ongoing commitment to refining its social programs so that they remain effective and efficient. This last year has seen some of the most progressive, proactive, and responsible social initiatives found in any province in Canada today. And they lay a strong foundation of support systems which are dynamic and designed to increase the options and opportunities available to Alberta families. Supports for Independence joins with reforms to Alberta's daycare system announced earlier this year and the very recent reforms to Alberta's foster care system. We have introduced these reforms because we know that strong families and a strong province are one and the same, Mr. Speaker. It's for these reasons that proactive social policies are essential to all Albertans. When Albertans need help, we must respond with supports supported for the 1990s. Supports, Mr. Speaker, suited for the times and able to provide economic stability and promote personal independence. Mr. Speaker, Supports for Independence is a bold step forward in providing a more equitable, active, and simpler support system for Albertans in need. It will be introduced in stages over a 3-year period and will see an overall funding increase of $61 million in the first year alone. A significant portion of this amount will be offset by savings resulting from an anticipated decrease in caseloads as the new services and benefits support clients through their transition to independence. In addition, cost savings will result from the introduction of a fairer distribution of funds previously allocated to supplementary benefits. Some of the features of the program are as follows: an increased emphasis on fairness, equity, and simplicity, an expanded standards benefit package, a new focus on assisting clients in accessing resources already available to help them gain employment skills and better training. And finally, there will be a clearer expectation of clients to prepare for self-sufficiency if they are able. Mr. Speaker, Supports for Independence will offer assistance through one of 4 sub-programs, depending on the level and nature of need and ability to achieve independence. The Assured Support Program will provide assured financial support for Albertans who are unable to work. The Transitional Support Program will help those temporarily out of the job market because of health problems or because they are caring for a young child or other dependent. The Supplement to Earnings Program will provide financial assistance to clients who are not able to make ends meet even though they are working. And the Employment and Training Support Program, which will probably involve more than 1/3 of all clients, will provide financial assistance and additional supports for those working towards independence. Clients will be given more freedom and more responsibility in how they use their standard benefits. Supports for independence will continue to be income, asset, and needs tested. Our priority will always be to ensure that Albertans have the financial support they need to ensure the essentials of life. But if people can work, then income support cannot be considered a way of life, and we cannot condone any abuse of the system. In trying to achieve a balance in those responsibilities, we have allocated new staff resources to the program. There will be a 13% increase in frontline staff as 55 workers are immediately added to employment and client support services to help clients in their efforts to obtain employment or upgrade skills. In addition, 35 new staff positions have been directed to the Family Relations Program to ensure that parents uphold their responsibility to contribute to their children's care. And finally, the Fraud and Error Investigations Program has been supplemented with 32 new staff positions, ensuring that backlogged investigations are completed and fraud and error are prevented. Mr. Speaker, I'm also pleased to be in a position today to announce that there will be an immediate increase in food benefits, which clients will receive in their January checks released December the 19th. Food benefits vary depending on the number of people in a family, but the average increase will be 7.6%. Shelter benefits for the vast majority of clients will increase as of February the 1st, 1991, by an average of approximately 5%. Some clients living at home will see a decrease to reflect the equivalent cost of having another person in the home rather than the rate of commercial shelter. In addition, Mr. Speaker, I'm also announcing that in the unfortunate event that the goods and service taxes becomes law, any GST credits will be fully exempted. Mr. Speaker, many clients I have spoken to say that the stigma of asking for assistance is easily as damaging as their financial hardship. They don't want to be on welfare. They don't want to have to depend on someone else to feed their families and pay their bills. And they don't want their children growing up knowing only dependence. What they want, Mr. Speaker, is to be self-reliant, self-sufficient, and self-supporting. I believe this must be addressed if we are to ensure increased opportunity for lower-income Albertans to achieve full economic participation in our society. Money alone is not enough for lower-income Albertans. They need supports which will help them gain long-term security through employment and increased opportunities so that future generations of Albertans can grow up independent of government support. This new program provides those needed supports, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, finally we hear about the long-awaited program that was supposed to be here last session. Mr. Speaker, in replying to it, the minister better not, clap himself on the back too much because he talks about listening. In terms of the daycare policy, and he quotes that in this ministerial statement. Mr. Speaker, he's the only minister I know that have got both the independent daycare people and the non-profit daycare people united, and they were united totally against his program, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the point that they make is that, yes, there were a lot of meetings, But if you talk to them, there wasn't a lot of listening, Mr. Speaker, because that program would have been very different if he's listening to the people in the daycare program. Now, Mr. Speaker, also I would like to comment on some of the initiatives. I mean, I recognize in the ministerial statement it would be necessarily vague, but whenever I hear code words from conservatives, Mr. Speaker, I do get a little nervous. A bold step forward in providing a more equitable, active, and simpler support system for Albertans in need. Simpler, usually, to conservatives is knocking more people off and putting them below the poverty level, but I'll wait and watch with bated breath on that one, Mr. Speaker. And then they go on to say that a significant portion of this amount will be offset by savings resulted from an anticipated decrease in caseloads as the new services and benefits support clients. Fair enough. I hope it works, Mr. Speaker, because nobody's stood up longer and harder than us on this side trying to do something for people on welfare to maintain their dignity and get them off. But I also worry what this means, Mr. Speaker. It's easy to have less caseloads if you push more and more people off, Mr. Speaker. In terms of the job training, I want to watch and make sure that this is meaningful job training, not some of the things that we've had in the past. So people on welfare can get meaningful employment, Mr. Speaker, not be off the welfare for 6 months and then back on because of some types of training that we've had in the past. But we will watch. We'll give the minister the benefit of the doubt, Mr. Speaker, but we'll watch that. I have some questions about what he means when he says about the 35 new staff positions that have been directed to the Family Relations Program to ensure that parents uphold their responsibility to contribute to their children's care. I'd really be interested to find out what he means there. And then I'm also curious about how some clients living at home will see a decrease to reflect the equivalent cost of having another person in the home rather than the rate of commercial shelter. I'll be very interested in those in the future, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I'm glad that finally, since 1981, and I'll just conclude that we have some increase in food and shelter, but not nearly enough, Mr. Speaker.
Hear, hear.
Thank you. Oral question period.
The opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it's probably surprised everybody, but my question is to the Premier. Mr. Speaker, since we sat in the House some 5 months ago, traveling around the province, it is clear to me as a practicing politician that there is more and more cynicism and disillusionment about public life. Make no mistake about it, that feeling is very clearly out there with the public, Mr. Speaker. There's a perception that politicians cannot be trusted and that they're only in this business for their own benefit, Mr. Speaker. As a result of that, Mr. Speaker, I'm disappointed in the Premier in the last few days, and I would suggest because of the revelations, I'll come to that this cynicism will be increased with the public, Mr. Speaker, and that's what's disappointing. Albertans have learned that the Premier has been speculating and profiting in an industry which he and his government exerts great control, Mr. Speaker, and they heard their Premier's response, quote, "So what? I've done nothing illegal." Well, Mr. Speaker, that's not the point. I'm not denying that there's anything illegal here in the technical sense, Mr. Speaker, but the moral tone is the important thing. My question to the Premier is this. Does the Premier really believe that it's acceptable that he, as the top person in government, can make decisions affecting the oil and gas industry and also profit from those decisions at the same time? Does he really believe this is acceptable?
Mr. Speaker, I think I'd agree with the Honourable Leader of the Opposition in terms of the cynicism that we see, not just in Alberta, Canada, United States, perhaps through the world, in generally with elected people in public office. And I think it is too bad. I think it is a wave, perhaps, that is going through and that it will correct itself, because my knowledge of people in public life is I haven't found any who, at least not in this legislature, in my experience, who have been dishonest or in any way taken advantage of their positions. However, I would like to correct the Leader of the Opposition's comments about the fact that I've been speculating in oil and gas, because I appreciate the fact that some members of the legislature have waited to hear from what I had to say about the matter. And I'd like to do that at this time. Mr. Speaker, sometime during 1979 and 85, when I was a private citizen, I did acquire an interest, a small interest in several oil wells. When I became a premier and a member of the legislature, I immediately disclosed those interests as required. And they have been public knowledge for some 5 years, I guess. And most members of the legislature may have known it, but it was there and it was public. The funds from those wells go into a blind trust. And the individual who manages the blind trust at some point made a decision to drill 2 wells, a small interest from my blind trust to drill 2 wells, 2 dry holes. Now, so therefore, there certainly wasn't any profit involved. It was all lost, but nevertheless, that was a decision without my participation, without my input in any way, to drill 2 dry holes. Now, he was aware of the fact that if an interest in land is acquired, then of course I must file it, which I did. And he provided me with a description of the lands, which I immediately filed, and they are also in the public domain and have been fully disclosed on a voluntary basis. So, Mr. Speaker, while I have been Premier, I've not been involved at all in speculating in oil and gas, and all of it has been public, and all of it has been the way our rules ask that we do it. And so it's been disappointing to have an inference drawn that leads to a different perception, and I'm pleased to be able, Mr. Speaker, to tell the honourable members of the facts.
Mr. Speaker, to the Premier, when you put something in a blind trust, Mr. Speaker, when you put something in a blind trust, you don't know that there was drilling in it. That's what a blind trust means, it's blind. How can the Premier say now that he knows that there was 2 holes drilled if he had a blind trust to begin with, Mr. Speaker?
That's exactly what I tried to explain, Mr. Speaker. I didn't participate in any way in the decision or the investment, but the individual who manages the blind trust does know that it is a requirement of our code of ethics that if lands are acquired, and therefore he sent me a list of the lands so that I could file them, table them with the clerk. That's the facts of the matter.
Mr. Speaker, clearly then the Premier is not following a blind trust. Because a blind trust indicates you do not know what the land is, Mr. Speaker. And it said in here that Mr. McLaren tells the Premier after he's invested in oil and gas. Now, how can that be a blind trust? Will the Premier be more specific on that, Mr. Speaker?
Hear, hear.
Well, I think, Mr. Speaker, I've gone through it twice, but I'll go over it again. The decision was made by the trustee. The trustee invested some dollars, lost them, I gather, and resulting in 2 dry holes. However, he does know that when a member acquires an interest in lands, that must be disclosed. He sent me a list of the lands that the interest was earned in, and I immediately filed those for public disclosure.
To continue with the Premier, my second set of questions, because I didn't get an answer really to the first part of the question that I asked, so I'll enlarge on that, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member, there are some difficulties involved, and the chair would also, if perhaps the Leader of the Opposition and other members would also look in Beauchesne, there are some references, 408 1C, 4093, 41213, and I'm sure other people can look at them while you carry on with your question, please.
Mr. Speaker, my second set of questions I'd like to direct back to the Premier. It has to do with code of ethics. It has to do with acceptable political behavior. And I've said, and I make this clearly, that the Premier, knowing and investing in an oil industry, knowing that he had that money there, at the same time making decisions, while not technically illegal, Mr. Speaker, I agree with them, is certainly morally not right. It's not the type of message that we want to send to the people of Alberta, Mr. Speaker. And I want to ask the Premier again, does he really believe that this is the type of message that the public will accept? Is this not the wrong message he's sending to the people of Alberta, Mr. Speaker?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition made several comments and a question, but I want to draw his attention to the fact that we have code of ethics and we have conflict of interest rules in this province, this legislature, and that I follow them completely. I follow them completely. Now, Mr. Speaker, at the same time, I have asked for a report on conflict of interest rules from three very respected Albertans. I have told the House that there will be legislation in the spring from that report. It's a very exhaustive 254-page report, and it is being assessed so that we can bring legislation in spring to make sure that on a constant basis that we are having as good conflict of interest, code of ethics rules as at all possible. I'll also be reviewing as a Premier any rules that I may wish to set out for cabinet ministers, which would be separate, obviously, from the rules, but in addition, the rules that conflict of interest legislation might carry.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm not talking about the legal, illegal aspects of it. I'm talking about the moral tone set by this government, Mr. Speaker. And under this legislation that we have, it would almost be impossible to do anything illegal, Mr. Speaker.
Got that right.
Now, Mr. Speaker, also the Premier has had his mortgage held by MIC Holdings Limited, a company whose board of directors has included key people in the Principal Group, Northwest Trust, Churchill Corporation, and the Pocklington Gang, Mr. Speaker. All good conservatives, Mr. Speaker. My question to the Premier, not to get into the legal or illegal part of it, I'm talking about the moral tone set by this Premier. Doesn't the Premier see that the possibility, or at least the perception of, at least a conflict of interest guideline is there when he's handing out millions of dollars as his government to these people at the same time they're holding his mortgage? Doesn't he see anything wrong with that?
Well, Mr. Speaker, of course, I don't, and we don't hand out millions of dollars, but can I be clear? Can I be clear to the House about a private matter, I guess, but it is, since it's been raised, a mortgage which my wife and I held on our property in Westbrook Drive, that it was obtained from a small Alberta company. Now, it could have been obtained from the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, could have been obtained from the Royal Bank, a trust company, or others. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong when the company is in the business of making mortgages, expanding into residential mortgages, and advised me of that, and I, at the going interest rate, Mr. Speaker, obtained a mortgage, my wife and I, because it's a joint matter. That company has since gone out of the residential mortgage business. That mortgage has passed now to the Royal Bank of Canada. But nevertheless, Mr. Speaker, it was strictly dealing with a company on an arm's length basis and at full going commercial circumstances.
Speaker, Mr. Speaker, please, to the Premier, wake up and smell the roses. We're talking about perceptions of the public and what they see their Premier doing, Mr. Speaker. That's what's wrong about this. Now, Mr. Speaker, it should be clear to this Premier now that people have lost confidence. There's two examples, there may be more, Mr. Speaker. And I want to ask a serious question to the Premier. I think he has, as I said the other day, make a career choice, Mr. Speaker. Either he wants to be Premier or he wants to dabble in the oil and gas industry. He can't have it both ways, Mr. Speaker. My question to the Premier is, which is it going to be? Or is he going to continue business as usual and try to be the Premier and set that moral tone? Or is he going to divest himself and work full-time as a Premier and bring in a...
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very disappointed in the Honourable Leader's position. I've explained to him exactly the way the circumstances were, and I think any fair-minded person would understand that they were completely above board and done the way both the conflict of interest and the Code of Ethic rules dictate. So I wonder why he is taking the position he is. Might I also say, Mr. Speaker, it is true that all of us as members of a legislature sometimes are involved in things that influence ourselves or our families. It's clear that every member of this legislature who might be a farmer or a rancher is involved in voting on the dollars that go either for farm fuel rebates or hail and crop dollars, student loans. I think I have a son who's obtained a student loan. Racehorses, as has been raised before by the member from Westlock. It is true that the Alberta Racing Commission tries to generate ownership of Alberta-bred horses through an incentive program, but those things are there, and it's the way that government touches on everybody's lives, and always, if it's done in a way that it is not preferential to anybody, I think it's taken for granted in this legislature, I know, that these matters where it is made available to all people in Alberta, then it is accepted that you're able to participate in the votes.
Edmonton Glengarry.
Mr. Speaker, before I start, as one who values health highly, I'm delighted to see that the Premier is looking well, and it would appear that he has overcome his illness. Nice to see you back. My questions are to the Premier. Recent revelations have indicated that the so-called small company that the Premier referred to is a company that normally dealt with commercial mortgage lending and not private residential mortgage lending. The revelations have also indicated that the officers of this so-called small Alberta company are individuals who have benefited rather generously, either directly or indirectly, through their involvements with this government. My first question to the Premier is this: would the Premier identify the individuals that he dealt with in securing this unique, special mortgage from this small Alberta company?
Thank you, Honourable Member. That question is clearly not in order. It's clearly not in order. Honourable members are as responsible for reading Beauchesne and standing orders and Erskine May as Speaker is. And the references were given earlier with respect to legal aspects of questions raised. In the first series of questions, the Premier volunteered certain information. But the question period is designed to talk about government policies and so forth. Now, just a moment, Honourable members, without interruption. General matters of policy which may relate to the government as a whole, which may relate to the individual responsibilities of a member. Now, if you think question period is going to turn into a witch hunt about specifics about any certain member in this House about their financial dealings, I think that perhaps you need to think again about what this parliamentary process is about. So I'm sure that the member, now going to his supplementary question, his first supplementary question, will now try to phrase his questions accordingly.
Well, point of order, Mr. Speaker. My second question to the Premier is this. Given that it is a conflict of interest for members of this Assembly, for MLAs in this Assembly to deal with the Treasury branch, to secure a private mortgage for their residence for fear that they may somehow influence the Treasury branch, does the Premier not think it improper for him to deal with individuals who have been so closely intertwined with him in a friendship way, and intertwined with his party, and intertwined with the financial goings-on of this province? Is that proper?
Well, again, Mr. Speaker, I don't know quite what the honourable member from Glengarry is trying to get at. I was able, my wife and I, to obtain a mortgage at the going interest rates and paid the mortgage until the company went out of that business, and we've since changed the mortgage to a different financial institution, in this case the Royal Bank. I don't see any problems with that process at all.
It is a matter of record in this Assembly, and now a matter of record from the revelations that have been brought forward in these most recent news reports, that the pals of the Premier and the pals of the Cabinet and the pals of this government have benefited extremely generously, have been treated generously by this government. I want to know, Mr. Speaker, from the Premier, is he prepared to allow this kind of activity to keep going on?
Well, first of all, Mr. Speaker, that is not a matter of fact. That is not so. That does not happen. As a matter of fact, I would have, people come to me sometimes and say, would you raise certain matters about the member for Glengarry, of what benefits he or his family get because of the federal government or things like that, when Liberals were in power. I refuse to get into that kind of thing. I refuse to try and bring politics down to that. And yet now we have the very person I've defended trying to do the very thing himself. But I would say this, Mr. Speaker, he refers to revelations. I'd like to tell the House of one revelation, and that is that the Toronto Globe and Mail sent a fellow from Toronto, went to my house in Stettler, and then tried to read documents or things through the window on tables and desks in my house. And when he's talking about revelations, I find that a remarkable way to go about doing it.
Thank you. Clover Bar, followed by Calgary Mountain View.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is directed to the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and it's related to the annexation applications back and forth between the City of Fort Saskatchewan and the County of Strathcona. The media and public relations, the emotional and political posturing that's occurring in these municipalities on these annexations is intensifying. An early decision on the annexation applications is advisable so that the municipalities may repair the damage which the present adversarial annexation process inflicts. When will the Minister take the recommendations that have been made by the Local Authorities Board to the Cabinet for ratification, a final decision?
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the member's question, and I know there's certainly a concern between the two municipalities with regards to their future. Up to the present time, what I have done is, first of all, studied the report. Secondly, I've had the opportunity, prior to that period, of meeting with both the Reeve and Council of the County of Strathcona and the Mayor and the Council of Fort Saskatchewan, so that I have their input. Secondly, following that, at this point in time, what I'd like to do is meet with the respective MLAs and have their input with regards to that annexation. And then following that, I'll put together a recommendation that I will take to my Cabinet colleagues. It is my hope, Mr. Speaker, that within the next 2-week period, or shortly thereafter, that I can make a recommendation to Cabinet and have this matter made public at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Minister assure the members of this Assembly and municipalities who may be engaged in annexations in the future that he will move expeditiously to bring into being a restructured annexation process? The present process is confrontational.
Mr. Speaker, many of the municipalities have indicated that they would like to have more of a participation prior to the hearings of the Local Authorities Board. A recommendation has come from the Municipal Statutes Review Committee. That is being reviewed by all of the municipalities across the province, and I would think that after reflection on that, that either into the spring legislature of 91 or 92, we would look at some type of an amended, improved, or changed process with regards to annexations.
Calgary Mountain View. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I understand that the Premier, since taking office, has had a mortgage on his personal residence with MIC Holdings. Amongst the individuals running MIC have been Gary Campbell, legal advisor to the principal group during its regulatory troubles, now Tory Party fundraiser; Robert Lloyd, lawyer for Peter Pocklington.
Honourable member, honourable member, honourable member. I'm glad honourable members have the ability to be able to read my mind, but best order in the whole House. I look forward to the rest of your question that I'm sure you're going to craft with great care.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just mentioning that one of the principals was Mr. Robert Lloyd, a lawyer for Peter Pocklington, who was able to get loans and loan guarantees from this government for gainers, and of course the gentleman who co-chaired the Premier's campaign for his party leadership and was key in the Churchill group that got $14 million of Heritage Savings Trust Fund money via VenCap Equities. Mr. Speaker, to the Premier, given that the government negotiated with Mr. Lloyd on the gainers' loans and loan guarantees, and that Mr. Lloyd was also intimately involved with MIC Holdings, will the Premier now use this occasion to assure the legislature he'll release the master agreement between the Alberta government and gainers in order to restore public confidence that in these negotiations so they could see for themselves whether the public interest was...
Thank you, honourable member. Thank you.
First of all, Mr. Speaker, I was not involved in any way in negotiating with Mr. Lloyd and the gainers matter at all. I wasn't involved in that matter. As far as some documents the honourable member is talking about, I'd ask the provincial treasurer to respond to it.
I'd like to hear the answer. Mr. Speaker, it's interesting that after the recess since July the 5th, the opposition is still desperate for questions. Let me say, Mr. Speaker, that most members know that the master agreement is the focus of a significant set of litigation between the former owner of gainers and this government, wherein the government is attempting to recover assets advanced to the company which may or may not have been advanced to the shareholder, Mr. Speaker, and you know full well, as does the opposition, I think, that these matters, when they are before the court, become privileged because, of course, things which may be said, even in the most innocent of fashion, could well prejudice our case, which is now proceeding on 6 different fronts, Mr. Speaker, in various courts here in the province of Alberta. And the master agreement, Mr. Speaker, the master agreement is in fact at the heart of this legal litigation process.
What part did the Mr. Speaker, in 1985, the Premier received a memo from the provincial treasurer itemizing problems with the effectively insolvent AIC and FIC, companies in the principal empire. There's never been a satisfactory disclosure from the Premier explaining why his office did not take action for over a year and a half after receiving that memo. To the Premier, Mr. Speaker, given that key people who lobbied him on behalf of the principal group of companies were also intimately involved with MIC Holdings, the company that lent the Premier money on his home, how does the Premier respond to the perception that he failed to act promptly to shut down AIC and FIC because of these personal financial relationships?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is really reaching, isn't he? Could I only say, Mr. Speaker, that the whole matter of FIC and AIC have been dealt with in this legislature in great detail by myself and other members of Cabinet, in great detail, in a government position statement, one of the most exhaustive inquiries in the history of Alberta, and then a response to it.
Edmonton Highlands, followed by Edmonton Gold Bar. The chair has recognized someone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Advanced Education, although given past tendencies, it may be the provincial treasurer who ultimately will answer the questions. The question relates to accessibility crisis at universities, and particularly with respect to the U of C, which has turned away some 869 qualified students this year, University of Lethbridge, which already reached its capacity, and the University of Alberta, which has had a registration increase of 30% since 1979, but a teaching staff increase of only 4% in the same period, all due to consistent, chronic lack of funding by this government. My question to the minister is this: is he prepared during this fall sitting in this crisis to provide the Alberta universities with an updated budget so that they don't have to turn away hundreds and maybe thousands of qualified students from their doors?
Mr. Speaker, I think Albertans could indeed be very proud that we have some 57,000 students in our four universities. That's an indication of the value Albertans put on university training. Mr. Speaker, I make no apologies for the success of our institutions. Our institutions, of course, they set the admission policies as to who may and who may not have access to the institution. Mr. Speaker, although we don't claim to have the funds that some people will wish to have, I think we've put in place adequate provisions, Mr. Speaker, whereby the post-secondary system remains to be one of the highest funded in the country per capita.
Platitudes, Mr. Speaker. They've given away $330 million in special warrants since the House last sat, and he says they don't have the money? Mr. Speaker, will this minister or the provincial treasurer explain to Albertans why it is that they got money for their corporate buddies, sometimes in the course of an hour or two, but they're going to continue to underfund the investment in Alberta's future, underfund the universities?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think it's very important to have on the record the honourable member for Edmonton Highlands objects to the $50-odd million provided to the nurses of Alberta, because that forms a special part of that special warrant. Mr. Speaker. Oh, sit down. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would point out to the honourable member that, and the honourable member may not like to hear it, we have perhaps the most successful post-secondary system in the country, consisting of some 28 institutions, Mr. Speaker. And if the honourable member, Mr. Speaker, has some alternative to finding funds, and I would recommend the honourable member make those suggestions.
Edmonton Gold Bar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Premier has referred to the report of the Conflict of Interest Review Panel commissioned by his government, and I'd just like to quote from page 32 of that document. If a minister or MLA can, by exercising a power of office, affect a private interest of the minister or MLA, there is a potential conflict between that interest and the public duty of the minister or MLA. And further it goes on, there is a greater danger that the public will lose confidence not only in the integrity of that minister or MLA, but in the integrity of elected officials generally. Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Premier. Since that review panel report gives very clear and concise guidelines as to the conduct that we should be able to expect of ministers of the Crown, will the Premier now release to this House full details of his oil and gas operations, not just the dry holes, Mr. Premier, the parties who ran these operations, the terms of his financial participation, and who the other participants are, so that Albertans have the air cleared for them. If there's no conflict, let's clear the air.
Mr. Speaker, I find it strange the honourable member would raise it after this information has been public for 5 years.
Well, that's a pretty disappointing answer. That is not full disclosure. The information doesn't give us, the disclosure that has been made doesn't give us the information we need, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my second question again to the Premier: does the Premier intend to continue in this course of action to engage in oil and gas operations, or is he prepared to make a commitment here and now that he'll discontinue at least until there is a comprehensive conflict of interest legislation before us?
Mr. Speaker, if the honourable member would just review Hansard or recall my answers today, I have not been investing personally in these matters while I've been Premier. That one was I acquired while I was not in government, and it was disclosed 5 years ago.
Member for Highwood, followed by Edmonton Jasper, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question today is to the Minister of Education. Mr. Speaker, in the past week or so, the Alberta Teachers Association has been holding meetings throughout the province, and I had the privilege of attending one of them last week, to demonstrate concern and to inform the membership about the ability of the Teachers Retirement Fund to meet its financial commitments. My question, Mr. Speaker, then is the Minister prepared to sit down with the Teachers Retirement Fund and ATA officials and listen to their concerns?
Mr. Speaker, I most definitely am, and I have been meeting with teachers and with the ATA, as all of our colleagues have been over the last few weeks. And I must commend the association on its constructive and positive approach to addressing this issue. And I know that all members will be interested in receiving submissions from the ATA.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My supplementary question, again to the Minister of Education: when will the Minister take action to eliminate these concerns and to put the TRF on a sound financial footing?
Mr. Speaker, I am working closely with all of my colleagues in Cabinet and Caucus to review all public sector pension plans, and including the Teachers Retirement Fund. And there certainly is room to move, Mr. Speaker. Even the teachers in their submissions have acknowledged that contributions to the fund should be increased from the current level. Contributions and the matter of benefits will be reviewed in cooperation with teachers, and it's my hope that changes to the legislation will be brought forward in the spring session in 1991.
Edmonton Jasper, please, followed by Westlock Sturgeon.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Honourable the Premier. On the day that he announced the Alberta Pacific project, the Premier was asked by a local resident why he hadn't consulted with them prior to making the announcement. His reply was, I quote, "I have no time for complainers and whiners like you." Well, it turns out a lot of people have concerns over that project and other forestry projects as well, which is why the EIA Review Board recommended against licensing the project. In view of the fact that the government has now manipulated the process to allow the Cabinet to make a decision about this project, I wonder if the Premier would explain what gives him and his colleagues the right as politicians to set aside the findings of the EIA Review Board and to make a political decision which may result in 60 million litres a day of effluent in the Athabasca River.
Shame. Shame.
First of all, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to correct the honourable member, because his report of my answer and the question in Athabasca or Lac La Biche, I'm not sure where we were at the time, is absolutely false. Your report is absolutely false.
Not for
but,
him.
Mr. Speaker, in terms of ALPAC, I would like the House to know that if and when a decision is made, it will be announced.
Before the by-election done?
Well, unfortunately for the Premier, we have electronic recordings of these things, and his words are very well recorded. But my question is not about the timing of the announcement.
It's about what gives the cabinet the right to make a political decision over the question of some 60 million liters of effluent being dumped in the river, rather than the EIA review board. What gives them the right to make a political decision in cabinet?
Ignoring in.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the honourable member knows that in the British parliamentary system, democracy that we live under, it's the government is elected, and it's elected people who make decisions.
Westlock Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've heard how the privileges get mortgages. I want to talk about how the farmers are handled with mortgages. Last Saturday, or Saturday, November the 3rd, Mr. Speaker, this is to the provincial treasurer, the member for Little Bow and two ministers of agriculture culminated a tour of southern Alberta and galloping into Vauxhall to tell 300 farmers that provincial help was on the way, Mr. Speaker, maybe even by the middle of November. However, only 1 week later, Mr. Speaker, the Treasury Bank, an agency of the government, sent in its minions to the Shupman farm at Vauxhall while the Shupmans were away on the weekend and carted away their machinery, grain, and livestock, followed by foreclosing on the farm, family home, and another 4 days later. Now, Mr. Speaker, my question to the provincial treasurer is, shame on the provincial treasurer, but anyhow, the question is, in view of the fact that the annual report of the Treasury branches says in its mission statement, and I quote, the Alberta Treasury Branch is required as a Crown agency to function with an operational subsidization and to carry out activities that are in harmony with overall government policies and objectives. I then asked the provincial treasurer how he can equate that statement and the rather mean-minded thing that his agency did to these people.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's always difficult, of course, for any government or for any lending agency to deal with the economic swings which certain economies go through. And right now, I think the agricultural economy has experienced a difficult swing. And of course, this government has moved in a significant, unprecedented, and massive way to assist the farming industry. We've heard already today references to the Alberta Farm Field Distribution Allowance, to the very successful $2 billion Farm Credit Stabilization Program, and I'm sure that my colleague, the Minister of Ministers of Agriculture, could go on to recite a more comprehensive and broad policy of government response to the needs of the farming sector. That's on the record, Mr. Speaker. It's been debated here already, and all members of the farming community know that this government responded at those times. And so it's very difficult to pick up a comparison of one example which is not fully understood by even the member who raises the question, and certainly not by me who is expected to respond to it, to say in a very narrow way what it is and what the Treasury Branch did in this particular case. We have a policy with respect to Treasury branches, Mr. Speaker, wherein we keep the broad policy mandate and provide to the managers of the Treasury branches responsibility for administering that mandate, and very carefully stick to a policy that, in terms of commercial transactions, we're not involved with or influence those kinds of decisions, Mr. Speaker. That's been our policy. That's how we operate. And to pick one narrow case is, in fact, inappropriate. But I can say, Mr. Speaker, that with respect to the Treasury branches itself, that more small businessmen and more farmers have confirmed the presence of the Treasury branch has saved them than any other financial institution in this province over the past 4 to 5 year period. Allowing more time to make payments, conscious of the impact with respect to guarantees.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for stopping that deluge.
Don't ask the treasurer again.
Can I go on to ask the treasurer if he's not operating this department in harmony with overall government policy, does he not agree with the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and this farm lies within the disaster area, when the minister said a week ago, 10 days ago, we shouldn't be foreclosing on farms in the disaster area? Who's running this government, or who's running the foreclosures, you or him?
Mr. Speaker, it seems to me that the member, despite his large and loud protestations, probably doesn't understand the way in which policy is formed, never having to be in government, of course, and never having to take responsibility for a broad policy. Let me say that what the Minister of Municipal Affairs, representing his constituency as the MLA, said may in fact turn out to be government policy very soon. But we have to go through a process to ensure that a broad, even-handed approach is applied, that in fact the policy is warranted, that in fact the delivery of the target is there. Mr. Speaker, we prefer to focus in, to target where necessary, to respond in a humanist way. That's been the history and the policy of this government in agriculture. We have moved in to assist in all areas of requirements, and we'll continue to do just that, and I'm sure the members' commitment will be very clear.
Thank you. Vagerville, followed by Calgary Glenmore at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Agriculture. The news that some 23 elk from the Begg Ranch near Rocky Mountain House are infected with tuberculosis is of great concern to cattle producers in the province of Alberta who have spent years and millions of dollars trying to eradicate this very serious disease from our province. It is also of great concern to naturalists and environmentalists in the province of Alberta who warned this government about the problems that expansion of commercial elk ranching in the province of Alberta would cause. Now, hopefully the minister has moved beyond blaming this unfortunate situation on the media and the opposition and started to accept his responsibility in this regard. And I'd like to ask him what his blueprint for action is to make sure that this serious problem is dealt with in a way that doesn't seriously impinge the future of our industry, the cattle industry in the province of Alberta.
Mr. Speaker, I should point out that this disease problem is being dealt with in a very capable and able way by Agriculture Canada, who have the sole responsibility for dealing with these types of diseases. I think a check of the honourable member with Agriculture Canada would give him any details with respect to actions taken, other herds under quarantine. I also think a little investigation on the part of my so-called ag critic would lead him to conclude that Agriculture Canada is dealing with this issue in exactly the same way as they did the last time, which was not long ago, that the same disease appeared in a cattle herd in Alberta.
Well, I'm convinced Agriculture Canada is doing its job. It's this minister that I'm concerned about who isn't doing his job. The bill that they rushed through this legislature legalizing the sale of elk meat, Mr. Speaker, awaits proclamation, and I'd like the minister to stand in his place, announce to Albertans that he's going to suspend proclamation of that bill pending a full environmental assessment of the impact of this industry on domestic cattle herds, on wild populations of elk in the province of Alberta, with full public hearings. A suggestion, Mr. Speaker, that they rejected out of hand 6 months ago.
Time for question period has expired. May we have unanimous consent to allow the minister to complete his reply? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member and all other members are aware that Bill 31 was fully debated in this Assembly.
Honourable Minister, sorry. Honourable members. The minister will be allowed to continue, but if shouting continues, it'll be the end of question period.
It passed the required number of readings. The regulations are currently approaching their final stage, and I have no doubt that once those regulations are finalized, the required OC will proceed implementing those regulations and proclaiming Bill 31.
Okay, I've got it. Member for Edmonton Glengarry on a point of order.
Point of order.
I cite 403, 4095, 4093. Mr. Speaker, I could only assume that you didn't hear the full content of the preamble that I set out. I thought I was very careful in establishing or attempting to establish that the small company that the Premier is confessing, agreeing to having dealt with, is in fact made up of directors, officers who have benefited substantially from government largesse. These people have been involved in the Principal Group fiasco, the Gainers fiasco, the Picture Butte hog processing fiasco, and the infusion and the infusion into Churchill of some $14 million. Now, Mr. Speaker, I don't know how much more involvement people need before you can ask them questions about how government policy is affected. The government has clearly given advantage to the pals of the Premier, the Cabinet, and the Progressive Conservative Party. And I think it highly, completely in order for me to find out, for our party to find out, for this Assembly to find out who those people were that the Premier dealt with. Were they people that will continue to get advantage from this government?
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair will indeed go back and look at the various references which were rattled off to see if indeed they were germane to the point. But with respect to the question being taken away from the Honourable Member earlier in question period, and I have the complete text of that while I have the complete text here, the concern had been raised by the Chair to some earlier questions, and references had been given in terms of other citations in Beauchesne as to the difficulty of asking questions which zero in on any member's individual interests. Again, question periods directed at the ministerial responsibilities and broad general policies. In this case, the Chair removed the member's opportunity to ask that particular question. But again, the Chair would also like to refer all honourable members to Beauchesne 409, subsection 7, which reads, "The question must adhere to the proprieties of the House in terms of inferences, imputing motives, or casting aspersions upon persons within the House or out of it." And that needs to be taken to heart. And also, honourable member, perhaps you'd like to refer to Beauchesne 412. A question may not be asked of a minister in another capacity, such as being responsible for a province or part of a province or a spokesman for a particular group, racial or religious group. So there's areas and references here which relate to Beauchesne, also in terms of our own standing orders and related to Erskine. Orders of the day. Forgive me, we have another items. First day back, it's tough to keep all these things together, isn't it? We have under Standing Order 30, and first one that will be dealt with is Standing Order 30. The request comes from the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to speak to the urgency of having a debate